Alright guys, I'm back. Had to take care of something. So this is the continuation of, this is part 2. I guess something I would like to emphasize is that what we feel is our mind's thinking is a sort of data imprinting upon data. However, this data imprintation process is occurring through is what we're calling our conscious free will. So the ability to put data in data or over data, to mask data with our own data, think of it. It's like you are masking the trueness of the world based on your first interpretations. So eventually you will reach a point where you'll see you can't just interpret. You can you It's like truth has to abide by your uh, inner thirst for it, you know? I'm just gonna Google universal mind and see like how many people have said something about it. I don't know who this person is, but his name is Deb- Debasish Mridha, and I don't know who he is, but he has this quote where he says, "With an open mind, you are the imagination of universal consciousness and the creation of the subconscious mind that wanders throughout the universe. You are the you are the imagination of universal consciousness." Okay, pretty much he's saying where the thoughts of God and the creation of the subconscious mind that wanders throughout the universe. Ah, okay. So he feels the subconscious mind was the individualization out of like this collective ocean. All right, I agree. Okay, what else is there? Ralph Waldo Emerson says, "A little consideration of what takes place around us every day would show us that a higher law than of our will regulates events, that our painful labors are unnecessary and fruitless, that only in our easy, simple, spontaneous action are we strong." Eddington says, "Physics is the knowledge of structural form, and not knowledge of content. All through the physical world runs that unknown content, which must surely be the stuff of our consciousness." Yogi Ramacharaka says, "If evolution be true, Living matter has been evolved by natural processes from which is apparently not alive. But if life is potential in matter, it is 1,000 times more evident that mind is potential in the unit of matter, the electron itself. It is to assert the sublime truth first perceived by Spinoza, that mind and matter are the warp and woof of what Goethe called the living garment of God. Both are complementary expressions of the unknowable reality which underlies both. So he's saying if what we consider our minds came out of nothing, like out of matter that wasn't alive, right? We're saying life is potentially in matter. It has the potential to be in matter. So then it's completely possible to see mind is a potential in matter, and even in the electron itself. This dude says, and it says it is to assert the sublime truth first perceived by Spinoza that mind and matter are the warp and woof of what Goethe called the living garment of God. Yeah, pretty much, guys. You know what all these all these great quotes are coming from? They're coming from people noticing this more integrative unknown movement occurring underneath all thoughts, right? And pretty much, if you're a dualistic creature, you just go towards one duality, and then you go to the other side of the duality, and you just like right now, I'm like we're alive. The civilization, has thought it's so materialistic. Its values are so just materialistic that, in some sense, we have to bring notions of the unknown and the soul and all this stuff. But back in the day, there were civilizations that were the opposite. They were hyper spiritual. They saw gods in the clouds and all that, and then the materialists of those era had to, in some sense, say that, guys, there's no, you know, truth in that way. So what would I say? How would I say it? I think I kind of when people think they're spiritual, the opposite of that polarity is the counterculture. Okay, it's just a game of countercultures, which is just moving the values of these creatures that we are on this rock between being more oriented towards the mind or being more oriented towards the matter. Pretty much your days, like it's a coin flip. It's a coin flip, and it's like this coin flip you've thrown in the air and you're waiting to come down, but it's not coming down, and it's just endlessly spinning. As if there's a sort of design at work. And when we try to, in some sense, look within the program, we discover the movements of the programmer. When we discover the movements of the programmer, the program suddenly becomes a simulation. Those people who think life is a dream, they are on the edge. They've kind of moved beyond synchronicity. Those people are still following their synchronicity. They're like, oh my God, I opened my phone and it's 11:11. Let me tell you how sophisticated your intelligence is. If you want to see something, your subconscious will still will make it happen. There was I don't know if it was Henry David Thoreau or again Waldo Emerson, but something like when you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. That means when you decide on something subconsciously, you're already in that world. And now you just want to see if your future, if the idea you have of your future is going to actually be true. And most people in society enter that game. They become creatures of the future. And creatures of the future stop caring for the past. So if the past had a wiser way of living, we're going to all forget it. Unless somebody comes and talks about it. Goethe has this quote where he says, it'd be funny if Goethe had a goatee. you Goethe has this quote where he says, to live in a great idea means to treat the impossible as though it were possible. It is just the same with a strong character, and when an idea and a character meet, things arise which fill the world with a wonder for thousands of years. It is just the same with a strong character. When an idea and character meet, things are, yeah, which fill the world with wonder for thousands of years. You know, I would add something if I was there, like when Gote said this quote, like imagine you just said this like in a public place. I would look at him and I would say, an idea how would I say this to you? You you decide the end of your journey in the unknown. So for the rest of your life, there's possibility. I don't know how else to say this. I agree with the quote, but my vision is that I mean it's an incredible quote. I really like Goethe's quote. You know, like who he is, this German philosopher, I think, or Austrian, I don't know. That wonder that is going to motivate our species to continue, it better be smart, efficient, and wise. You embody these three principles of smart. Smart means wit, means you wondering how the intellect is occurring for you. Efficient means you wondering how the result of your intellect is occurring. If a child in school doesn't care about existing in that classroom, that child is not in that classroom. Do you know how many kids have entered class, like a classroom setting, but their attention has not been there? You know, as if the teacher is a tree. I'm going to continue this quote stream because there's some nice quotes I found on this website called astro.new. Anyways, matter, force, life. Oh, this is what a name. Flammarion. Flammarion said this. Matter, force, life, thought are all one. In reality, there is only one principle in the universe, embracing all that is and all that possibly can be. That which we call matter is only a form of motion. At the basis of all is force, dynamism, and universal mind or spirit. Guys, let's do a slow hand clap for that quote. Paracelsus says, this is another quote by this guy, Paracelsus. He says, the life of things is none other than a spiritual essence, an invisible and impalpable thing, a spirit and a spiritual thing. On this account, there is nothing corporeal, but has latent within itself a spirit and life. Oh, nice. This is a quote from Alfred. Here it says A.N. Whitehead. This is Alfred North Whitehead. And he says the sharp division between mentality and nature has no ground in our fundamental observation. I conclude that we should conceive mental operations as among the factors which make up the constitution of nature. Exactly. He's saying see your thoughts as evidence of how the universe is occurring. how nature, this miracle of life we all talk about, how it's here, how elegantly it moves, how elegantly it evolves, how elegantly it embraces the causality of every effect of its existence. As we walk through these tunnel of quotes, I'm going to tell you there's a man named Pernetti. He says the superior and inferior bodies of the world, having the same source, the one and the same matter as a principle, have preserved a sympathy, which causes that the purest, the noblest, the strongest communicate to those who are less, so all the perfection of which they are susceptible. All right, I read it too fast. Let me find a nice song. Pernetti, the superior and inferior bodies of the world having the same source, in brackets he says the one, and the same matter as a principle, have preserved a sympathy which causes that the purest, the noblest, the strongest communicate to those who are less, so all the perfection of which they are susceptible. So what it means is pretty much the greatest warriors of the species communicate the challenges they're facing, the direct, real challenges they're facing, and as they communicate the challenges they're facing, the world begins to learn from their realities and from their realities approach. And that's the value of communication. When you speak, you become a mind to the world. And the world, whether it hates or loves you, has engaged you. I would witness a phenomenon when I was younger in middle school and high school, which I couldn't comprehend, and it was very far from my approach. I was a very quiet kid, you know. In other words, when I could not align, I would, in some sense, internally align. Anyways, there would be situations through peer pressure where I could see certain kids get their minds being manipulated by the group mind. And when I saw the mind of the person get manipulated by the group mind, that kid suddenly would have a test of character. And if that kid's character was strong, he would stand his ground, he would appreciate the world he's in. But most children, because they're still dependent, because they still haven't understood, they have entered this life to be themselves. And it's honestly an exploration. You can't blame anybody for your failures. It's an exploration. If you fail, they'll be like, okay, man, you didn't explore enough. Now sometimes there are challenges. Like there are abuses that our species, at times members of our species go through, that in these abuses they consider themselves they consider themselves not the victim, but they take responsibility for, like, as if like you fell down and hit the ground, and you can't blame the ground, so you take responsibility for you hitting the ground. But in actuality, if there were clouds there instead of a ground, it'd be a more you know elusively softer landing. So pretty much what I find that Pernetti is saying here, you kind of unite the mind of the species, and you realize, wow, it's not like my ideology is only important. What's important is this grand system of various moments of being 8 billion plus people here, not just being objects here. We have minds. We're 8 billion minds, and minds have the potential of experiencing the intensities of chaos and order, which means if we don't see, like, if we only think materialistically, overpopulation, holy shit. But if we think if we think not just in like subjectively of the significance of the positioning of these creatures, why is there suddenly a lot of people here? Because these people bring with themselves worlds that once that creativity as a way to find the global stage, the world will just imagine every day, instead of hearing news about bad things happen, you just hear news of all the creative things. Imagine if civilization's decision had come to a creative conclusion. They had given creative freedom. In some sense, given the opportunity for order to make mistakes, but also chaos, but for chaos and order to recognize that regardless of their mistake, they are here because their world is here first. And that is why I honor law. That means like if I really honestly, it has to do with mood. There have been moments where like I felt patriotic for the moment. I've been in a moment and I've been like, yeah, I identify with this group and this category and this banner and this sort of ideology and all this. And at the end of the day, I realize I am just a man in a world that changes before my eyes could define them, could shape them. I am in constant awe of my own existence. There have been moments where I have cared for its loss, and there have been moments where I have not cared because there were greater doors to enter. And so for me, the fascination of the unknown made me realize the value of honesty and decency, and how with peace the mind's innovation finds a way to generate. That means there's so many ways, genius ways, that human beings can live, but because their environments are shitty and violent, they don't get a chance to. They never get a chance to wonder if they were just a brute in a blind program, or if they were the clarity that their species was waiting for. You live once. That means you have one lifetime to see your boss and your leader, humanity, the most ultimate way that our future, our children's children, all the future generations can walk. That means I don't want to leave the future generations as if, sorry guys, we messed up the place, clean it up. I dare not be that kind of a blind fool. That means regardless of the most uh, uh, alluring metaphysical, substructure to my thoughts, regardless of the various stories of divinity I have placed on this moment. I have made this moment something of a celestial journey. I have made this moment into a sort of remembrance through emptiness of eyes that were never conceived. I have walked in many ways, and my mind has occurred in many moments. But in these moments, when I became conscious of it, it was like I was watching the film of my memory. My memory was a movie in accordance to how I was a character now. Seldom this is said, but how you hold yourself is how you hold the world. As one witnesses the universal mind in motion, that's where you find, you just feel it's cool to live for your civilization. And when you find Mr. Within, when you actually wonder about what's looking out through your eyes, and you see it beyond thoughts, emotions, never has existence will not lie to you. It will show you all that it is. I hope this talk has served you. Much blessings on us.